Welcome. Thank you so much, folks. We really appreciate everybody's participation on a dreary morning outside, but we're going to make sure that we illuminate you here with some amazing ideas and insights here at the LA Convention Center. So once again, it's really remarkable how we never get away from the classroom jitters of never wanting to sit in the front row, right? So old habits die hard, but I definitely do want to continue to encourage you. There's some spaces in the front, and we really value and appreciate everybody being able to participate. And one of the ways that we'd like to encourage you to do that is, of course, being as close to the presenters as you possibly can. We are really excited to be able to join you. We have a dynamic group of presenters, and I know we're going to just kind of dive into this, but I want to begin by saying this is really your presentation. So while the presenters will have an opportunity to share about their experiences and the insights about the subject that we're all convened here today, we really want to make sure that we stimulate conversation. So I'm going to invite you to jot some ideas down and pose those questions, and when you do that, we want to get to know you. So if you can, as loudly as possible, introduce yourself, your name, your college or organizational affiliation, and then of course pose a question to whether it's to one of the presenters or all of them. But we'll go ahead and get to that in a minute. So once again, I really want to thank you. My name is Brandon Shamim. My day job is I am proud to serve as the president and co-founder of an entrepreneurial small business that has been in existence now for close to 18 years. We have the good fortune of working with a whole host of organizations, small, medium, and large companies, governmental agencies, nonprofits, colleges, universities, healthcare institutions. The hat that I'm also very proud to be wearing today is many of you in the room, like you, I'm an educator. I've had the good fortune of having taught at the four-year institutional level and also at the community college level for about almost a decade. And I've had that privilege to teach at some amazing institutions, both public and private, here in Southern California. Now, I do want to encourage you, as you can imagine, we have some very accomplished presenters here. So if we were to go through their bios, we would probably be concluding our session. So I want to encourage you to pay attention and take a look at their bios. It might stimulate some ideas of what you might want to discuss with them. But today, really, what we're assembled here is to really talk about a subject that I think is a personal passion of mine, as is our presenters, and one that I know a number of you already represent some great, resources, relationships, and talent, right? So many of you are already working in the entrepreneurial economy, working within global trade, supply chain, and retail, and those are the different environments that we're going to try to be able to encompass in our conversation. And for those of you who are wondering, how could we possibly accomplish that in the time span that we have? Well, that's why we've got such great speakers who are all really what I call boundary crossers and serial entrepreneurs. They've done a lot of these things, so for them, it'll really be representing their authentic experiences. Before we do begin, I do want to give a shout out and thank a number of the people in the room that have really made this particular event from their vision to be able to achieve this today. And let me begin. There's a number of deputy sector navigators that were in the room. So boy, I hope this is not a competition, because we're starting strong. We got 3 deputy sector navigators in the room. I love it. Leanne Chua, who was our DSN for global trade and logistics for the LA region. Thank you, Leanne. And Lynn, I spotted you in the room. Lynn Stewart, who is our DSN for global trade and logistics in Orange County. Thank you, Lynn. And we're also equally blessed, a last-minute addition, although I know Doris is reticent about, maybe being part of the program, but we're really blessed to still have her on the dais here. Doris Driver, who is the DSN for Small Business and Entrepreneurship. So thank you, Doris. Really appreciate it. And we'll get to our presenters in a minute, but what I wanted to do as we're talking about really the subject of filling the talent pool for the entrepreneurial economy. And the entrepreneurial economy, folks, is really in some ways the story of Southern California, right? The reality is that Southern California, for good, bad, or indifferent, we are not the epicenter of corporate America, right? I serve on the executive board of the LA Chamber of Commerce. I chair the Small Business Council. And I'm constantly reminding my colleagues ever so gently that our group represents really what is the backbone of Southern California's economy. It is not the big corporations. The small and medium-sized business is what represents the broader economy. And what we're going to talk about a little bit is to give you a perspective on what is the pulse and the temperature of the people in the small business community. We'll then move to talking a little bit more specifically about what's happening with the global trade supply chain industry specifically, and then that'll kind of ease us into the really exciting part of it is the conversation from our presenters. So, once again, I think it's only fitting for us to have a little bit of background. And, obviously we know in business, as in education, we are constantly moving. Just a quick story. As I mentioned to you, I have the good fortune of teaching, and one of the classes that I'm teaching at Cal State is global entrepreneurship. And just this week, I was a very enterprising student talked about how they themselves had created an aquaponic ecosystem, and immediately, I'm like, oh great, I'm supposed to be the person that knows this stuff, right? But no, my students are much smarter than I am, and I suspect they'd be even much smarter than all of us in this room. So anybody know what aquaponics is? Perfect. So aquaponics, and please correct me, since I had a quick primer on this from one of my students, is really fascinating. Aquaponics is really the balance between marine life and plant life, all within a water-based environment, right? So the small fish, the snails, they're essentially living in this aquaponic tank, and their byproducts essentially create nitrates that are then able to be used by the plant life to grow. And of course, the plant life giving oxygen allows for, and the water, of course, allows for the marine life to be able to grow and expand. Folks, aquaponics is oddly enough the symbiotic relationship that we have in the world of education, right? We are all reliant upon all of these different parts of the ecosystem to work in symmetry to be able to provide for a quality of life. So this is kind of a great tie-in, and if we could advance the slide, Charles. I always like to begin with just having, actually, let me do this. There we go. I forgot. I have Charles is good enough to tee it up, but I have to do some work around here, right? So the National Federation of Independent Businesses, it's a national organization that represents a broad array of industries in the small business community. Every year around the first of the year, they do kind of a pulse meter, right? We all know about USA Today Gallup polls. Well, this is kind of the equivalent for the small business community. And what's interesting is they aptly title it the Optimism Index. So if you look at it, our small, and I wanted to really focus very specifically on their hiring mindset, right? We're here at a workforce development conference, so let's really focus in on that. So if you can look at it, the trend line obviously was very low at really the kind of the nadir of economic downturn 2009, and then slowly it creeped up. And this is interesting because if you were to look at, for those of you who like a lot of analytical things, if you were to actually look at this plot line and compare it to corporate America, corporate America continued to stay flat for many years, you know, and the small business community was the one that was actually taking the risk of wanting to continue to hire even at the height of the economic downturn. So gradually, and as you can see in 2015, there's this now renewed hope and optimism in terms of hiring practices. Now, mind you, this is a national survey. Things get a little bit different when it comes to the Southern California economy. But just some real quick pullouts. 52% reported hiring or trying to hire, which is interestingly enough down 3 points compared to last year. Okay, 45% reported few. This is the part that I think is a really critical takeaway for us. 45% of the respondents, and there were close to 2,000 respondents in this survey, right, reported that fewer or no qualified applicants for the positions they were trying to fill. That's a subject that we'll get into today. 14% reported using temporary workers, which was down. Okay, so let me advance the slide to another one, another quick pull away. Can small businesses hire enough workers? And this is the part that is really, really the most aha moment in my opinion. The single most important business problem, right? This is only third on the list to taxes and too much regulation or red tape that small businesses are always talking about. And it's the highest reading since 2007. The single biggest problem that small businesses are facing is being able to find and hire enough workers for the positions that they have, right? So then the question that begs to be asked is, what are they looking for, right? But as you can see, the good news for a lot of the populations that we are most concerned with is students. So the good news is that because of this talent gap and this worker shortage, small businesses are now being compelled to actually increase pay and compensation, okay? Once again, I challenge anybody to compare that with corporate America, and you'll find that trend is not necessarily the case with corporate America. So let me advance the slide to something that I think is really important, and I'm gonna, you know, this gets us into a little bit about the global trade and the supply chain economy. So recognizing that's kind of the national temperature, let's look at what's happening here locally. So JP Morgan Chase did a really remarkable study, and they looked at major metropolitan areas around the country, and Los Angeles, of course, being one of the most important ones that they looked at. The three economic drivers for Southern California, in no order, are information communication technology, healthcare, and global trade, supply chain, and logistics. Now, as many of you know, there's a broad conversation going on about increasing, you know, providing livable wages and the like for people in the workforce. Well, guess what, folks? That conversation is moot when it comes to the global trade industry. Look at the starting out hourly salaries. Look at the median hourly wages. Look at the annual earnings, okay? We're talking about anywhere from $21 to $37 an hour. 52,000. We're talking about starting pay, folks. That's really, really exciting news, right? So the investment of people, and if you look at it, the growth through 2019 in very specific, this particular graphic didn't tease out the healthcare with the global trade, but if you look at it, logisticians, transportation inspectors, shipping engineers, all of these things that maybe some of you are scratching your head about are some of the highest grossing income opportunities and highest growth opportunities, right? 22% of all, and here's the one last takeaway as we move into the next part of the conversation. 22%, okay, almost a quarter of all jobs in the global trade logistics space are middle skilled jobs, right? CTE related jobs, right? That's the great news. So if we're thinking, oh, you need to have, you know, a master's in engineering or an MBA in international business, not necessarily, right? So this is something that we really want to impress upon as you're thinking about this subject. Just real quickly, another great data point to share. This was done by a subject matter expert who's engaged in work with East Los Angeles College, who's done a remarkable job of creating, third-party logistics, trade and logistics, have received funding from the Department of Labor to look at a lot of these things. So this is a 2014 survey that was done among specifically the supply chain industry, right? Global trade, logistics is a broad industry sector. So supply chain specifically, look at that, folks. The #1 primary concern, lack of qualified labor pool. So this is what the industry is thinking. This is what the industry is saying. And as an educational community, we have to be reminded about this subject, which will kind of allow us to transition into something. I'd like to kind of, use this last particular slide to transition into our conversation now. So one of the things anecdotally that I can share with you, and this was, I can't attribute the source, but I will say this because I'm sharing this because it really kind of amplifies and exemplifies the point that we're trying to make. So, the idea of demand planning, for those of you who understand supply chain logistics, is one of the particular areas of concern. It's a very technologically driven, specific, skill set. But even though the skill set is important, this is what an individual, an executive in the trade and logistics space said. In this area, we go out, we hire math-minded individuals who understand statistical models and predictive analytics. But in doing so, we're finding these people can't hold good meetings, can't effectively collaborate with their peers. So the skill set has to be married with what I would refer to as the success-minded mindset. Now, some of you may commonly know this as soft skills, and I'm going to push back maybe a little disrespectfully. Team-based problem solving, critical analysis, ability to negotiate with stakeholders through across a broad array of internal and external stakeholders, being able to manage a crisis. I don't think there's anything soft about those skills, folks. Those are what I would refer to as success skills. So with that, I hope that we use this as really kind of a foundation of thinking as we pursue this conversation. So now, as I had shared with you earlier, I'd like to now focus our attention on our wonderful panelists. And I'd like to give each of them an opportunity for a few minutes to talk broadly about, what are they seeing from their vantage point? Individuals who are both serial entrepreneurs who represent diverse industries. And Jay, I'd like to begin with you to really kind of give us a sense of what's going on in the industry and why should we as educators be concerned about how to prepare our workforce of tomorrow. Please.
Good, great. Thanks, Shameen. Thanks, Brandon. Welcome, educators. How you guys doing? Great. So I want to give you kind of a real quick background, just in the context of this discussion. I equal opportunity entrepreneur. Started my first business at 15. I've done a lot of stuff in finance, private equity, and technology-related companies and startups. And education, I think, is something that is near and dear to my heart. I have a couple of couple boys, and going down the path that I grew up in, being an entrepreneur, I've always been a self-starter, looking for ways to disrupt industries, create more innovative ways of doing things, whether it's in the finance industry or healthcare or sales. And I took a non-traditional path, as many entrepreneurs do, when it comes to education. And so my kind of career over the last few years over the last couple decades have been I've taken this hybrid approach in terms of looking at it from a really kind of grassroots and kind of street level in terms of education, and building skill sets and core competencies that I feel are necessary for people to be successful in society and in the business world, and align them with in-classroom experiences. So, I went through the traditional 4-year experience, got my MBA, and did various type of traditional, taken the traditional path in terms of education. So I have kind of a perspective in both lenses of where I think skills and the background of individuals, how people need to, I guess, accumulate their skills in order to be competitive in the workplace. And with technology, and Jamie hit a lot of these points in his talk previously, technology is really changing the way that education, I think, is being facilitating skill-based learning. And when you're seeing things like edX, when you're seeing things like MOOCs, massively open, online courses through platforms like Coursera and Udacity, we're seeing a shift in the way that current people in the workforce are looking to accumulate those skills and acquire those skills. And in my organization now, the way that we do a lot of our hiring, we do a lot of internships. So we hire from within, and we're looking for a lot of, entrepreneurial mindset and people with intrapreneurial onsets. People are looking to, to create disruption and innovation within processes within our organization, specifically in the areas of e-commerce and global trade. We look for people that haven't necessarily taken the traditional path, but are eager to learn and utilize resources that are available to them, such as Udacity, such as skill-based learning platforms like Udemy. I love Udemy. I mean, you can go on there and if you're trying to learn how to do, financial modeling, or, you want to learn some core skill sets in graphic design, you can go to lynda.com. You can go to Code Academy or Treehouse or General Assembly, which has done a really great job locally in terms of building technical skill sets. Reaching out and utilizing those platforms, I think, are really important outside of traditional classroom experiences, because what those do is they bring in these traditional frameworks that you learn theoretically in the classroom and have immediate application into the workforce. And in our internships that we do within our organization, we try to really create an environment in which they can apply their skill sets that they learn in the classroom, theoretical frameworks, and apply it in a way that they become hungry to learn. And we want people to learn and build skill sets, not because we tell them this is what's required, not because it's a checkbox that you need to check in order to complete your resume and go out there and find better jobs. It's because we want them to genuinely want to learn those skills. And when they see it in the context of working in the field, and they themselves will create an understanding of what voids they need to fill. And they can reach out to these platforms, which will grow insurmountably over the next few years as well, and try to acquire those skills themselves. It's that internal motivation, I think, is creating a dramatic shift in the workforce, rather than us telling them this is what you need to do, and you need to take Math 101, and you need to take Science 101 and Engineering 101, because we feel that based on our curriculum design, this is what you will come out in the workplace and what employers want to see. That dramatically has shifted. And I think we'll talk some more about what especially in the community college arena. I mean, we reach out to all the UC systems, the private schools, the Cal State schools, and the community colleges, because we really want to be institutionally agnostic in terms of where we pull our candidates. We have great people that have come from community colleges. We have great thinkers and people that have matriculated in our organization that have come from UC and Cal State schools. But it's really those that motivation that we're looking for. People to, work within the construct of the roles that we've created for them, and then seeing if they're motivated enough to go and self-learn themselves. Because the platforms right now there's skill-based platforms out there that you can acquire skills super quickly, right? You can go to lynda.com and take a workshop on HTML or Photoshop or anything of that nature, and instantly, within a week, be able to execute some of the tactics that we need to have done in the roles that they work in. So, I think that's, in terms of talking about this shared economy or on-demand context within education, there's a vast amount of resources, and if educators within traditional classroom environments can understand how to create an alignment and utilize those skill-based tools, I think can really help facilitate learning and accelerate learning that much better for students and within kind of the workplace.
That's terrific. Thank you, Jay. And I think it's a great comment on coming on the heels of what we heard from Jamie from Google. How do we provide kind of the context for the skill set to then become working intelligence, right? Something that we can actually do something with and be able to utilize in the workplace. So that's perfect. Thank you, Jay. Really appreciate it. So Tanya, same question. Would love for you to share kind of your background and experience and all that. And through that, what has been your kind of, process of thinking, bringing people in, and being able to help kind of guide and shape their thinking?
Actually, I agree with everything Jay said. I am changing my speech or my dialogue that I was going to say, so good morning, everyone. I'm going to say what he said, but I'm going to give it to you in the entertainment version of what he said. And yes, my name is Tanya Duché, and I worked in entertainment for about 20 plus years. And my journey, it was completely different. I came from the hard knock life struggle. My journey wasn't straight ahead, it was zigzagged. I went to several community colleges. I jumped around. I come from a single mother who, based on problems that we had in Chicago, Gary, Indiana. If you've ever seen Gary, Indiana, it is not the place to live in. And she came to California to give us kids a better life. I didn't know what a better life was because I had been used to the bad life. So when I arrived in Carson, California, I saw, wow, trees and grass, and I had never seen that. And I knew that my mother was trying her best to give me and my brothers and sisters a better life. So my job was to do well in school because I knew that's the only thing I had, was to do well in school. And so I was the best student I could be. I joined everything I wanted to be in, from drill team to cheerleading to leadership, anything I wanted to be, because I wanted to be a leader, because I knew where I came from and where I was. So with that said, I went to community colleges because I really didn't know what I wanted to be. I went to Harvard Community College, I went to Mesa Community College, I went to Long Beach Community College, I went to every community college, because what I didn't have, what I have now, is I didn't have anybody mentoring me. I didn't have any advocacy. I didn't have anyone telling me what to do. I didn't have Google. I didn't have the internet. I didn't have any of that. All I had was my mom saying, well, you got to go out there and sew some outfits. That's all I had, a sewing machine. So I knew that if I didn't go inside of myself and motivate myself to be somebody, I was not going to be anybody. I was going to be back in Gary, Indiana. So what I did was I decided, since I was tall, I'm going to be a model. My mother would make outfits, and she was bootlegging, trying to do fashion shows, and I would say, Mom, I'm going to do it the real way, and I'm going to go to New York City, and I'm going to show you, Mom, how it's done. And that's what I did. Did I know anybody in New York City? No. I had an uncle, though, who lived in New York City, but he was friends with everybody from Muhammad Ali to every super singer there was. He was very unstable. So where he lived with his girlfriend. So I had to live with him and his girlfriends, and as he got broken with his girlfriend, I would move around. That's all I had. And I knew that this wasn't going to last too long. So I only had a short window to make my way quickly If not, I'm back out of here, out of New York City. And so that's what I did. So every day I woke up and I met with people. I was energized. I got me an agent. If you said for me to be somewhere, I was there. If you said to be there at 11 o'clock a.m., 6 a.m., 7 o'clock a.m., I was there. Because you know what? I was determined to be somebody. So after I started modeling, I went to becoming a makeup artist, and you guys have read my bio. It's very, very long because I have just pretty much everything. I worked in entertainment. After modeling, I moved to New York City, and to Los Angeles back here, and I started a company called Creative Image. What is Creative Image? I don't know what it was. It was just a good name. I liked the name, and I just said, that sounds good, and I did it. Creative Image was a company that was a visual production company. That's what we titled it. And it sounded good. Everybody bought into it. Everybody in the entertainment business, from Universal to Motown to Island Records. What we did was we hired the leading ladies in all the music videos. What we did was we did all the makeup for all the videos. What we did was we hired all the stylists that dressed all the superstars and all the celebrities. Did I get the videos from Michael Jackson and Cher or any of the major artists? No. I got videos for Ice Cube, Tupac, Dr. Dre. I got videos of people that these were not the people I wanted to image. But these individuals they were unknown at the time when I worked with them, like TLC, but they ended up becoming these superstars and celebrities. And I share this story because I didn't know that I could make as much money as I could in that business, in that world. My annual monthly gross coming home was $30,000 a month, and I was 22 years old. Because those kids, and I'm a kid too, were doing video after video after video after video, and my day rate was $1,000. And I said, well, if I get 1,000, I can add 1,500 to it. And so they paid me $1,500 a day. So my training was unorthodox. I didn't have anybody mentoring me. All I knew was that we just got up every day. I would get my sister, my boyfriend's sister, and I would get a bunch of friends, and I'd say, look, we're going to have this business. And we'd open up an office in Wilshire, but I was living at home with my mother. So I figured instead of paying $1,200, $1,500 for an apartment, I'm going to pay $1,500, $1,200 for a business in an office. And I'm going to put a desk here and phones and all of the things that we need to do. So that was my story. And that's how I met Doris Driver back then. And so she can attest to that. That was actually happening. So I want to thank Brandon, and I want to thank Doris, too, for having me here. I don't get a chance to speak to this type of audience all the time. I was very excited about being here. I got up at 3 this morning. My mother told me to wear this gray suit. I wore it. I was like, Mom, I'm like, you brought me this suit. She's like, you need this suit, and wear the briefcase I brought you, because one day you're going to be speaking to a crowd of people that wear suits. I'm like, okay. So I wore the suit. So anyway, that's my journey. And from there, a light bulb came on that I needed to mature into my world in business. And I started to talk to people at bank, financial advisors, accountants, and that's what I needed to do. I got a chance, I'm going to speed up now, I got a chance to go into the publishing world, which is a world that I always desired and dreamed to be in, coming especially from being a model. I worked for Mr. Johnson, Johnson Publishing. He was the wealthiest man in the publishing world, making $10 million a year. And I wanted to be like that. That's what I wanted to be. And so when the opportunity, I prayed every day for years and years and years to have a magazine. But I didn't pray too good because I ended up getting a rap magazine. So you have to be specific in what you ask for, because I wanted a magazine. I had preferred a makeup magazine or a hair magazine, but I ended up getting a rap magazine. And this rap magazine landed in my lap. I'm telling you, it landed in my lap. So sometimes opportunities come, and you got to know when the opportunity is here, because you really don't know if that's a good opportunity, but you got to really look at it. But this rap magazine came to me. It was owned by Larry Flint. And I'm thinking, why? Ooh, this is bad. I can't, I'm a Christian. I don't want to be affiliated with this, but I want the magazine. So I was always conflicted going in every day. So, I would have these long talks with God. Why is a rap magazine with this man, And so, what happened? 9 months later, he closed the magazine. And I probably had maybe $1,000 left in my bank account because I was trying to make something happen with this. He basically brought me in to do a tour, and they weren't going to pay me. I said, okay, don't pay me. Just give me an office and a phone, and that's what I did. And so as I'm running out of money trying to get sponsorship dollars, and anyone who knows how to raise sponsorships, that is a difficult job to do. I'm running out of money. And so I'm end of my rope, he goes, well, we're closing the magazine. And I said, well, wow, you're closing the magazine? And I just called up on Monday, and I said, can I buy it? Sure. I said, wow, I don't know anybody that has any money to buy anything. So he wanted $500,000. I didn't know people who had $500. I couldn't get $500 from nobody. But I asked and I asked and I asked. And I found this international, I won't mention who they are, but I found these guys. And they said, okay, we'll buy the magazine and we'll have you run it. Well, as it turned out, it didn't work out with them. It ended up coming to me because they ended up bankrupting the magazine. The magazine got bankrupt. I was downtown at the court trustees. I was learning on the job. And I ended up buying this magazine that I had initially wanted out of a public auction. And the only reason why I got it is because in my community, in hip-hop, in the rap world, no one gets up and shows up at 8 o'clock. No one does that. Who does that? When Doris told me 8 o'clock, Brandon said 8 o'clock. I said, well, okay, I better get up at 3 because I don't know what to expect. But I knew in my genre of business and the guys, my colleagues, they're not coming at 8 o'clock in the morning for a public auction. So I showed up. And guess who got it?
Very nice.
There was no one to bid against.
That's right.
So as I was busy to making this media publication grow, guess what was happening? No, guess what was happening as I was building it in 2000? You mentioned it. The internet, the World Wide Web was coming.
Right.
So as I'm building it, the publication, trying to find about shrink wrapping, printers, trucks to deliver it to the newsstands, guess what? That's not about to happen anymore. So some advisors told me, you better start thinking about the internet. And I was an advocate. No, we're not doing that. Black folks want to read and touch. We don't like nothing online. They don't have computers. This is crazy. I can't do this. And guess what? Eventually, they says, well, we're not going to fund you. I said, well, okay. So for 6 months, I sat there like this. And then I decided I better embrace this World Wide Web. As we're all in this room learning. We're all learning this together. So I built, or had some people build, until I learned how to build, a website. Do you know in a year's time that website became #1 on Yahoo? It came #1 on Yahoo, on Google. We were rising to the top as quick as we could because the name of the website is Rap Pages Magazine, and rap around the world globally, everyone from China to Croatia, places I had never even heard of. The military, they were all wanting to know what was happening in the rap business and the rap music. And so that built our whole website to #1. So now we're taking that magazine or website and we're building an app because now apps are popular. Now Rap Pages is going to be its own channel, its own network, and so that's where I am today. So that's my story.
Tanya, thank you. Thank you, Tanya. Folks, once again, this group of individuals represent, I think, what is emblematic of entrepreneurs. We all have unconventional journeys to be where we are. And part of that is to embrace the opportunity and more importantly, to create those opportunities, right? So let me just kind of move the visual here for a minute because I want to make sure that we are very student-focused, okay? And I think this is something that we as educators, obviously, we do it And we know it from an abstract conceptual, and so many of us are in the trenches every day. But part of, I think, what we are reminded is, what's the process by which we're listening, right? Are we listening based upon data and information, right? We live in the world of big data. We're bathing in information. But what does that information tell us? What are those themes and trends? What are those little micro, messages that we can't necessarily put down on a spreadsheet or a report for a grant, right? How do we seize on that mindset that individuals in this new generation of thinking have? And the good news is many of us in the room are within this generation of thinking, right? This is something, an interesting fact also that we have to kind of myth bust in the room. Kauffman Foundation actually does, it's the #1 source for promoting and advancing entrepreneurship in America. So they do all sorts of wonderful research and studies. Raise your hand. I don't have a door prize for you answering correctly, but I'll still ask the question. What's the average age of an entrepreneur in America? Please raise your hand or shout it out. This is not a classroom, so. 25, 18, 22. It sounds like an auction, right, huh, Tanya?
Right.
I'll raise you by that. Oh my God, 14. Oof. Well, you know what? Keep going up. Okay. 42. Bingo. Average age of an entrepreneur, folks, in America is 42 years old. And yet all the sexy headlines of the day, from Snapchat to any major e-commerce website, app, would remind us, wow, you know what? Kids are jumping out of their wombs and boom, they're like, they're already developing. I mean, Jay, you know the new adage in the VC world, 30 by 30, right? What's 30 by 30, Jay? You've heard that?
Yeah, top 30 before 30 years old.
Top 30 by 30 or 30 billion by 30. There's all sorts of 30 billion with a B, right? $30 billion in the bank by 30, right? This is the mindset of the entrepreneurial economy. And yet, statistically, 42 is when people start to germinate and create businesses in America. Right? So here's the question that I'm going to pose to all of you. And Doris, I'd love for you to get in on this too.
I wanted to just real quickly.
Please.
I'm Doris Driver, and real quickly, my background is also entertainment, mostly music industry. And as far as education, I came real quickly through the foster care system. And then I won a scholarship through A Better Chance for private school, and then another scholarship through the Terrell Scholarship Fund to Whittier College. But it was actually college of my choice. And I just want to emphasize this.
Yeah.
I came in when I was a student with an entrepreneurial mindset. So I looked at my education, high school and college, as I knew what I wanted to do, which was work in the music industry. So I would go and speak with my faculty, and I would speak with counselors, and I'd go, here's my end goal. How do I achieve this end goal? What courses do I need to take? And I'm emphasizing this because I'm speaking to students. My job, yes, is to bridge industry into education and do professional development with yourself, but I'm actually on the campus talking with students. And more students and so across the LA region has 18 community colleges in the region, about 70 high schools, and countless middle and elementary. And even at the middle schools, when I speak to students, they're coming in with the entrepreneurial mindset. So the traditional education curriculum works to an extent, but it's not addressing a Tanya Duche who's going to come in there, who's winging it, who has this mindset, who doesn't want to go traditional route. And they're not being addressed. So it's very important, what my job is to bring industry like Jay and like Tanya to come in and speak. So that is what we're gearing toward. And you're right. It's interesting that when I speak to young students, they're not interested in working for anyone. Even though my job, and I'm on record, but even though my job is required to enforce the workforce, these students want to either own their own businesses, or when they work for small businesses, they must understand the entrepreneur's mindset in order to be multitask, have the right temperament to support a small business, which is different from a corporation. So I encourage you to engage in conversations with your students. Assess your students. What type of mindset do they have? Do they have the mind to be an entrepreneur? Ask them questions, and then we can bring industry in to address those questions directly and help you in the advisory meetings and bring industry partners in. But if you have a knowledge of what your students are looking for, we can bring in the right industry partners to help you. So I just need to say that.
Thank you, Doris. Really appreciate it. So let me shift the focus back real quickly to everything obviously is global. And the new term of globalization. Global thinking locally. Jay, talk to us a little bit about the companies that you're seeing that are emerging. What's kind of the spark of interest? Where are some of those trend lines heading in terms of are they taking things that are in their environment and turning it into, or are they really, very inventive about what they're doing? So if you could, talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I'll speak to that in the context of education. And I'll start by saying, traditional learning and traditional education is gone, is going to be changed forever. I think we all know that. The sooner we accept that, the sooner we can move towards doing bigger and better things, especially for students. That statistic that Brandon was sharing in regards to, entrepreneurs and at what age, I think we've all heard the statistic. Millennials are going to have what, 5, 6, 7, 8 careers in their lifetime. Why is that? It's because there are so many different types of mechanisms to learn online. And the reason why a 40-year-old can be an entrepreneur is because they get fed up with their job and they say, hey, I can go online to Udemy or Udacity or take a MOOCs course and learn something different, engage with others, and try to start something new. Entrepreneurism has been around for obviously a long time. But it's not just about being a self-starter or starting your own business. You can be an entrepreneur and be a disruptor working for a company, or trying to change the way the company is doing something, or enter in a new industry, or do something of that nature. So, working in the classroom, I think, is super important. There's one course that I took when I was getting my MBA at Cornell. It was one of the best courses because it was not instructor-led. The instructor became a facilitator. Good educators, I think, should not be teachers. Teaching a curriculum, teaching books, that's important. That's obviously, facilitating tests and exams and all that, the critical thinking aspect, that's good skill-based, that's really important, these soft skills. But really, this professor was a facilitator, and the whole course was about bringing industry insiders about various topics, and the students were learning from the industry experts. The whole course was about that. The instructor did not lecture at all. And it was one of the best courses because the students felt extremely motivated, fulfilled. And this is the one thing that I talk with a lot of educators about, is bring industry into your classroom, okay? Don't sit on a pedestal and say, I'm going to lecture because I'm the pedagogue here and I know this topic and I'm going to profess to you what I know, or what this book is all about, or how to pass an exam, or how to take a test. People don't care about that. That type of stuff does not necessarily help the student make it impactful, penetrate the marketplace. What they want to, if you really want to facilitate learning, bring industry experts in. Something about a topic, whether it's engineering, or if you're teaching something about math and science and biology, bring in a scientist, bring in someone who's made a change or impact, and talk about their story and what they've learned. Throughout our internships, we have students that come to our company and they say, in a semester of working at our organization, they've learned more than 4 years in college. Why? Because they're doing hands-on things, and they seek out things that they want to learn, right? So we give them the opportunity to do so. Education is changing, especially with the MOOCs, right? The Mass Open online courses, in which you can take the first year MBA courses from Wharton, a premier business school, for free. You can take what you know, elite students that get into Wharton, they pay $150,000, $160,000, $180,000 to get their 2-year MBA. You can take the entire first-year curriculum for free. That's massive change and disruption in the marketplace, right? Anybody can go on and take, you know, Finance 101, Marketing 101, branding, you know, business decision models, whatever they're teaching to their elite students that they accept completely for free. That's showing a dramatic democratization of education. And when you can reach out and learn and have access to those type of things, people are going to want that in a different way. And educators, I think, need to bring in industry and utilize these technology platforms to really create a disruptive mechanism in which how people want to learn and people learn in these type of industries. So organizations, to your question, Brandon, organizations like us, like a lot of technology-based companies, because that's my world. So, you know, the Googles of the world, the Apples, even the small startup companies, you know, the Ubers of the world, they bring on people and they look for qualified candidates, not based on, you know, pedigree, not based on credentials necessarily, but they look at, are they open to learning? Are they, what's the depth of their experiences? And those are the type of people that actually help the organization, because it doesn't, you know, there's people that, you know, had a liberal arts background or studied English become awesome investment bankers in Wall Street. You don't have to study econ, or you don't have to study finance, right? Or vice versa, people in economics, people in what Jamie was talking about, people who study finance and economics and sciences, that they go into nonprofits, they're doing social-based work. Not aligned with what they've learned. Why? Because what you learn in the classroom, all it does is it facilitates, yeah, it's important. It's absolutely important what you do in the classroom to facilitate critical thinking skills, creating discipline and character in regards to you know, kind of these type of you know, learning habits. It's absolutely important. But I think there needs to be a real big shift in terms of how education is facilitated to help people, in, you know, current individuals in the workforce.
Perfect. Thank you, Jay. Tony, would you like to comment real quickly? And then I think we would like to open the floor up to our wonderful audience as well.
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to that as well. And yeah, changing the mindset or changing the way we are teaching our young adults that are coming into the college. There is a website called entertainmentcareers.net that if you have students that are looking to be in entertainment, and I wanted to add to what you talked about in terms of corporate, Los Angeles, Southern California is not, we're not big on oil or manufacturing or corporate.
Exactly.
It's entertainment.
Right.
And so people from all over come to Los Angeles, right here where we are, to be in the film and to be in television and be in the media or behind the scenes. They want to be script writers or screenwriters. They want to work, they want to go to the Oscars. They want to do whatever it is to be in the entertainment business. And so I deal with that all the time. I deal with that all the time. And one of the things that what Jay was mentioning is that it's a change because our young adults are not listening to us. Even my kids, I have kids now. I have twin daughters. They don't listen to me. They listen to what's on their smartphone. You know, they listen to what this has. My daughter just had a baby, okay? We'll keep that in this room. Okay, I'm a grandmother. She's new. And I said, honey, how are you going to raise a baby? You don't know anything about. She says, I have an app that, at all. In my ears, I said an app. She says, yeah, Mom, it's an app. I said, you know what? I couldn't even hear anything else she was saying. But I only share this story because that's how they're thinking. Right. You know, when we grew up, our mothers, our grandmothers, they came to our house. They helped you with your child. But now it's the app. It's going to teach her what she needs to know about rearing a child. So that's the mindset of what we're dealing with. Those soft skills, please implement them. Dressing, please. If any administrators are talking, if counselors are in this room, whoever's in here, talk to these kids about dressing because they're watching the Kardashians, they're watching Love and Hip Hop, they're watching it, and they're coming to my office looking like that. And that's not how you come into an office.
Let me just say,
Doris,
we'll be utilizing you, Tanya, on some workshops to talk about that. But I just want to speak with faculty about the importance of industry partner and the win-win of that situation. When you bring an industry partner, part of our job is to outreach, find the industry partners. So when you bring them into the classroom, you form a relationship with this industry partner. Now, the industry partner gets to be a guest speaker directly to the students, so the students are getting the knowledge, but as a partner to it, they also can provide internships and employment after the student graduates. So it's a win-win to bring them in, because you're forming this partnership, and that way the students can speak directly to an industry person. We have industry partners that are specializing in interview skills, Tanya in her stylist skills, so we're providing that for you. But that they also become your partner for your classroom.
Perfect.
That you can use.
Thank you, Doris. I want to make sure that we're attentive. I know we're going to get the fade to black signal soon. So real quickly, I'd like to make sure there's an opportunity for at least one or two questions, if you can. Just real quickly, share your name, your organizational affiliation, if you'd like to pose the question to Tanya, Jay, or even Doris. Please.
I'll speak to that. It's real important when you meet with a young adult and to understand what they want to do. Because you can tell them what they should be doing but if you can, even if they're undeserved, if they're are they the bad kids or they're?
Well, special needs.
They're disability students.
Special needs.
Special needs. Yeah.
I want to speak to that right there. There's a gentleman who's on Shark Tank. And when I was preparing to come here today, his name is Damon John. He's dyslexic. I had no idea about that. And so a lot of times, if you just look at his YouTube, and we don't have enough time to talk about it, but it was encouraging to me because I realized my daughter might have a bit of dyslexia. So it doesn't mean that they can't do other things, but we just have to identify what they want to do, what they can do, and really sometimes spend some time with the student. You know, I spend time with my interns. I go out and I talk with them and, you know, really do one-on-one with them. So
let me just say, come to me after this, and so we can discuss more what your needs are and see if we can actually direct the pathways for your needs.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. And just real quickly, we had the pleasure of representing a company that was established by a guy who had a bright, enterprising future. 30-year-old, had a freakish surfboard accident, was disabled became a quadriplegic, quite frankly. Embrace your experience. He took that experience, he ended up creating a company that would essentially be able to diagnose, this is back in the day now, diagnose how websites would be more accessible to people with mobility and learning impairments. So embracing your authentic experience is so critical for entrepreneurs. Questions, please.
I would say get a mentor, get an advocate, because that for me, and that average age of 42 is basically meaning that you have staying power. You're mature, you understand business, you're dedicated, you're loyal. But kids who start young and become entrepreneurs, like an LL Cool J, they start young, but they also have determination, they have heart, they don't have fear, too. You might see kids that don't have fear. You have to take the fear away. Scared money doesn't make any money. You know, scared money doesn't make any money. So I would say get advocacy. You know, I have people around me that insulate me, that I talk to when I don't have a question. So if you can leave here and you see a student like that, it might be their parent, it might not be their parent, it might be a teacher, counselor, relative, but have a mentor and an advocacy. My mom is mine. You know, when I didn't have any furniture in my office, guess what she was bringing in? Furniture from, I don't know where she found this furniture, downtown in the alleyways, but she brought in furniture. And that's the person who's been my advocate.
Perfect. Thank you, Tanya.
Yeah.
Jay?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think taking a look, answering that question in a different perspective is, how should the facilitators or the educators be looking at this issue, this question, Cody, that you're raising? And, you know, the traditional milestones and metrics of how we measure success in the educational system is skewed, period, okay? So traditionally, if someone drops out like that, or they take a few classes, and Brandon and I were speaking to that earlier, and they don't matriculate in the system, they don't graduate, they're immediately considered a failure. or you don't meet your, the schools don't meet their metric because, oh, we're having X amount of percentage of dropout rate or success rate, et cetera. That's skewed. And it's trickled down from the top because everyone has to be held accountable through this educational system because of funding, because of the money has to get to certain places, et cetera. So the sooner we change that shift to say that if someone goes through the education system, feels that traditional pathways is not the right way, or they're taking courses the unconventional route, they're taking online courses or doing skill-based learning, that doesn't mean they're not successful. It actually means that they're going to be very successful because in the workplace, because of the initiatives and the assertiveness that they're taking. And one area that I'm seeing is that traditional curriculum is faulty because it doesn't allow for students to really realize that topics and majors such as global trade or international trade is not sexy because they're thinking, oh, global trade or logistics or supply chain, you name drop these type of things. They're thinking, oh, I'm a warehouse worker, or I'm going to work for UPS for the rest of my life, or whatever. But that's not the case. Technology is changing it to really allow, if you bring industry insiders, to show that there's tremendous amount of innovation, there's tremendous amount of sexiness in these type of industries that just they don't know exist. Amazon.com, for example, is a logistic company. Yes, they're a sexy e-commerce, multi-billion-dollar company that sells goods and books and all kinds of cool stuff, but they're a logistic company. They're excellent in supply chain. They're excellent in movement of goods. They're excellent in warehousing and fulfillment, right? So, the sooner that students understand that they have these opportunities and that, the sooner that they're going to realize that, hey, I can take on these opportunities and be successful.
And with that, we want to bring sexy back and also to share with you. This is I'm going to take facilitators' prerogative here. Something that we're very proud to be a part of. We want to encourage everybody in this room to be able to come and participate. It will not necessarily be a cost to anybody in this room, students and educators. A global trade and logistics regional summit, first time ever, Long Beach Marriott, taking place May 20th. So we really are looking for you to be able to provide that success. Gratitudes all around to all of you, and gratitude to our wonderful presenters. Thank you, folks.